You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk. And please indulge me as I start off this show by celebrating another dominant pitching performance by the best pitcher in baseball, Gerrit Cole. The best pitcher in the league isn't DeGrom. It's not John Means. It's not Jack Flaherty. It's not Clayton Kershaw. It is Gerrit Cole. Or as my mother calls him, my boyfriend. Because I do have a little bit of a guy crush on him. With the exception of maybe Jeter. And I've said all this before. No one understands what it means to be a Yankee and the expectations that come with that better than Gerrit Cole. He knows what he needs to do every start, and he just does it. Case in point, yesterday's start. An important game for the Yankees. The Yankees, as of recently, have not been able to beat the Rays. They haven't won a series against them in 2 years. This is the Tampa Bay Rays we're talking about, a team with a microscopic payroll. I am not saying that you need to have a Yankees or Dodgers-like payroll to be successful in the majors, but if you have that type of a payroll, you've got to beat those small budget teams. The Yankees weren't doing that against the Rays. They lost to them in the ALDS. Last month, the Rays swept the Yankees. That's when you had some people saying that the sky was falling. Now, the Yankees did rebound after that series. They've been playing much better baseball recently. Like I said on Monday, people have gotten off the ledge. But it could have all gone sideways against the Rays. If the Rays had swept the Yankees, or had won the series, you would have had people saying, you know what, this team isn't a World Series threat. Maybe they'll be decent, maybe they'll make the playoffs, but they won't make any noise. Instead, Jordan Montgomery shuts down the Rays, gets a little help from Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez, Jonathan Loaisiga and Aroldis Chapman shut the door from the pitching end of things. And then yesterday, an important game, like I said, the opportunity to win a series against the Rays. Something that they haven't done in 2 years. Forget the fact that they're a small market team. They're in the same division as the Yankees. If you can't win a series against a team in your division, forget winning a World Series. Forget winning a pennant. If you get matched up against them in the playoffs, you're dead. So Cole knew that. He's a smart guy. He gets what's going on. With all of that resting, on his right arm, Cole was dealing from the word go. Striking guys out, inducing ground balls. You watch him pitch and you're just in awe of what he can do. But obviously there's another element to baseball. It's great that your pitcher is pitching well, but are your hitters hitting well? The Yankees hitters did not hit well. Even though the Rays went with a stupid opener, it worked. So how stupid can it be? Evidently not very, but I still hate it. Let's put it this way, it doesn't work in the playoffs. I mean, the Yankees couldn't get anything going offensively through the first 6 innings of that game. Stanton struck out 3 times. Frazier was useless. He got tossed after arguing balls and strikes with Bill Miller, who had a terrible game. I mean, I know he's a pitcher's umpire, but come on. Some of those strike calls were ridiculous. Feather in the cap of the people who aren't robo-umpires, let me tell you. Then in the 7th inning, something interesting happened. The Yankees were actually able to get to Ryan Thompson. Judge hit a single, Urshela hit a double. Somehow Joey Wendell speared a hot shot by Luke Voigt. Jeffrey Springs came in and gave up a sac fly to Aaron Hicks. And then Brett Gardner grounded out to Willy Adames. So it's 1-0 Yankees. Hey, they got a lead. Yesterday was one of those games where you say to your ace, hey, we're just not hitting. We don't have it today. We need you to win us this game. We'll pick you up in the future when you don't have your best stuff, but we don't have our best stuff right now. You've got to pick us up. And that's what Cole did. The guy pitched 8 innings of shutout baseball. Only gave up 4 hits. Struck out 12. Didn't walk any. Garrett Cole issued his last walk on April 12th. It was against the Blue Jays. Lourdes Gurriel walked to lead off the bottom of the 2nd. Since that walk, Cole hasn't walked anyone. He has struck out 56 men. That ties Curt Schilling for the longest streak since 1961, at the bare minimum. That's as far back as Elias can go, evidently, of striking guys out while not allowing a walk. He is incredible. Every time he pitches, it's must-see TV. Whenever it's a Garrett Cole start, every Yankees fan on earth stops what they're doing and watches it. It's appointment television. He is now 5-1 with a 1.37 ERA. He has a .68 whip. In 52 2/3 innings, he has only walked 3 men and has struck out 78. With my life on the line, there is no one who I would rather have pitching than Garrett Allen Cole. He has an iconic Yankees saying attached to him, the sign that he held up in the 01 World Series, Yankees fan today, tomorrow, forever. I'm going to repurpose another iconic Yankees saying. I want to thank the good Lord for making Gerrit Cole a Yankees fan. As of this very moment, the best free agent signing in baseball history is Max Scherzer. He has been everything that the Nationals could have dreamed of. 15 years from now, we could end up saying that Gerrit Cole was the best free agent signing in baseball history. I'm not done celebrating my favorite sports people. It's time for some NBA Valk talk, specifically about my beloved Nets. For the first time in 18 games, James Harden played basketball. You know what? It looked like he never left. He led the Nets in assists with 11. He had a double-double, 18 points in 25 minutes. Some of those passes that he was making were absolutely insane. He made this one pass where he put the ball over his head and threw a bounce pass to Jeff Green. I don't know how he saw that. The vision that Harden has is nothing short of incredible. He was getting everyone involved. Kevin Durant really didn't have a great game. He didn't need to. Landry Shamet was unconscious. Nick Claxton dominated in the interior. Same thing with Jeff Green. Bruce Brown grabbed 11 rebounds. He's 6'4". He can play all 5 positions, I'm telling ya. Him and Harden, the only Nets with double-doubles. I know that it was against the San Antonio Spurs. Not a great team. Will they be in the play-in tournament? The answer is yes. But I don't think anyone expects them to make a lot of noise. I don't see them beating either the Warriors or Grizzlies at this very moment. They're slated to face the Grizzlies. I get that the Spurs aren't a great team, but let me tell you, there was never a moment when I was watching that game yesterday that I thought the Nets were going to lose. Harden just brings something extra to this team. A facilitating element that neither Durant nor Kyrie have. I'm not knocking Durant and Kyrie. I love Durant and Kyrie. Okay? I just got a picture of the big three mounted on my office wall. Okay? I love them all. But with Harden in the lineup, the Nets are just a different team. They are vastly superior. People say that with Durant and Kyrie in the lineup and no Harden, the Nets would be fighting for a playoff spot right now. Well, isn't it a great thing that Sean Marks traded for Harden? Don't all the people who killed that trade look foolish now? Evan Roberts, Kevin Pelton, Jerry Recco. James Harden is without question the most important player that the Nets have. There's no doubt in my mind that the Brooklyn Nets are going to win the NBA title. There are teams that scare me. There's no question. From a talent standpoint, the Sixers scare me. from a defensive standpoint, the Knicks scare me. I hear people saying that there's no such thing as a great defensive stopper. The great offensive players are always going to find a way to score. They will, but you're missing the point. Let's say Durant, Harden, and Irving all score in the 20-point range. So that's 60 between the three of them. You've got to find 6 or 7 other players to score 40 points. Against that Knicks team, how much do you trust Joe Harris? How much do you trust Blake Griffin? How much do you trust Nick Claxton? How much do you trust Landry Shamet? I'm not saying that those guys can't do it, but it's going to be tough. Nets-Knicks is a really, really scary series. I would much rather face the Bucks. Other than that, though, that's it for the Eastern Conference. The Heat don't scare me, with Oladipo being out for the year. The Celtics don't scare me, with Brown being out for the year. If you look in the Western Conference, the Jazz really don't scare me. The Suns don't scare me. The Clippers scare me a little bit. But again, they have a big 2. The Nets have a big 3. The Nuggets scare me a little bit, but the Nets just beat the Nuggets. They came back from a 20-point hole against them. The Blazers definitely don't scare me. The Mavericks definitely don't scare me. The way the Lakers are playing right now, they don't scare me. I understand LeBron, AD, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma. I get the talent that's there, but just the way they're playing right now, the Lakers don't scare me. The Warriors don't scare me. The Brooklyn Nets are winning the NBA title. If betting was legal in New York, I'd put a lot of money on the Nets winning the NBA title. And let me just say this. I understand that the MVP is probably going to be Nikola Jokic. I haven't gotten too wrapped up into awards yet. I like to wait until the finalists are announced before I do anything with that, but a lot of people are saying it's either going to be Jokic or Joel Embiid. I've heard Russell Westbrook's name mentioned. If Harden didn't get hurt, he'd have a great argument for MVP. Look at what the Nets have done since he got there. And look at what the Rockets have done since he left. Harden's not going to get MVP. He's not going to be a finalist. Maybe he'll get some votes. But he's not going to win the award. He's missed too much time. But if he had stayed healthy, I probably would have cast my vote for him. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. And I'll start with the Broncos finding a replacement for Jawan James. If you missed it, a little over a week ago, he tore his Achilles tendon. So obviously he's going to be out for the year. After signing that big contract with the Broncos, 4 years, $51 million in 2019, he's only played in 3 games for him. Shades of C.J. Mosley. But that injury did leave a big hole on the Broncos' offensive line. James was slated to be their right tackle. They were without one for a little bit. Enter Bobby Massey. A proven veteran. A guy with injury concerns, there's no question. He missed the second half of last season with a knee injury. And it's really unfortunate because he was having his best season. According to Pro Football Focus, last year he had a 72.6 overall grade. That's the highest mark of his career. If he had stayed healthy and stayed in that range, he would have gotten a big contract in free agency. Instead, he had to wait 2 months in free agency, see all these teams that needed right tackle help, address that hole in the draft. Doesn't seem like he's going to get a shot. Then the Broncos come calling and offer him their starting right tackle job. I can only imagine how quickly he signed that 1-year, $4 million deal. It's a great fit for Massey. I'm happy for him. I think he'll be a really good right tackle for the Broncos. The contract is more than fair. It's a great move for the Broncos. We just don't know who's going to be their starting quarterback. Is it going to be Drew Lock? Is it going to be Teddy Bridgewater? Or is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? I'm not saying that the Packers are going to trade Rodgers, but if they do, it's probably going to be to the Broncos. There are 3 teams that are incredibly likely to trade for Rodgers if he ever becomes available. The Broncos, Washington, and the Raiders. I'll give an honorable mention to the Giants because he'd make perfect sense for them. If you put Aaron Rodgers on the Giants, that team's a Super Bowl contender. I don't care if you believe in Daniel Jones or not. There's no way that Jones becomes anywhere near as good as Aaron Rodgers. Do I see the Giants moving on from Jones? Not anytime soon, but if I was Dave Gettleman, I'd definitely explore the possibility of trading for Rodgers. The Raiders would be interesting. It would spark a little bit of a domino effect. If Rodgers was to go to the Raiders, Derek Carr probably doesn't go in that trade. The Packers don't need a quarterback. If they're going to trade Rodgers, it's going to be so that Jordan Love can start week 1. And Blake Bortles will be his backup. That's why I'm bringing Rodgers up. Because the Packers did sign Blake Bortles. Say what you want about Bortles, but he's an experienced quarterback. He went 2-1 in the playoffs in 2017. Almost beat the Patriots. He does give the Packers some good insurance at quarterback. It's a good move. It makes sense. Love and Bortles at 1-2 on the Packers depth chart. Definitely not as good as having Rodgers at the top of the depth chart, but that could work. Look, does the Blake Bortles signing mean that the Packers are gonna trade Rodgers? No. But it does open up that discussion. It's reasonable to have the debate. If Aaron Rodgers is gonna go, where's he gonna go? If he goes to the Raiders, it's going to spark a domino effect. The Packers aren't going to want Derek Carr. It makes no sense to have Derek Carr as your backup. So where's Carr going to go? Not to the Broncos. No way would the Raiders do that. Probably Washington. I don't see the Giants making that type of move. Is Carr an improvement over Jones? No question. But I don't think that's the type of move where you slam your fist on the table and say, you better do this. This will help us win a Super Bowl. So look, there are moving parts to that. It's a lot simpler if Rodgers is going to go to either Washington or Denver. In the case of Washington, it just becomes, how are you arranging the depth chart behind Rodgers? Are you going to have Fitzpatrick as the backup? Or are you going to have Taylor Heineke as the backup? If Heineke's the backup, that means that Fitzpatrick becomes the third stringer. Would Fitzpatrick go for that? He may just retire, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world because you do have Kyle Allen also. Aaron Rodgers, Taylor Heineke, and Kyle Allen at 1, 2, 3 on the depth chart. That's fantastic. And for the Broncos, it's really simple. You just cut Brett Rippon. Rodgers is the starter, Bridgewater's the backup, and Drew Lock is the third string quarterback. Would Lock be upset at that? No question. Maybe Washington would be interested in him, but I don't know how high Ron Rivera would be on Lock. It's interesting, the moving parts that would come with a Rodgers trade. Again, I'm not saying that Rodgers is going to be traded. And I'm definitely not saying that the Blake Bortles signing means that Rodgers is going to be traded, but it does open up that discussion. Since I'm talking football and I've spoken about the Yankees and Nets, I guess I'll talk about the Jets. According to Ian Rappaport of NFL.com, they brought in Tavon Austin for a workout. I mean, I'll say this, I don't mind the idea of Tavon Austin being a Jet. Is he a good wide receiver? Absolutely not. The guy hasn't had over 200 receiving yards in a season since 2016. He hasn't started a game since 2017. But once upon a time, he used to be a really, really good punt returner. Is he at that level right now? Probably not, but it doesn't hurt to bring him in and give him a shot. It's not like the Jets signed him. They just brought him in for a workout. I mean, that is an area that I'm a little concerned about with the Jets. Their special teams. I understand that it is the third element of the game, but still, how many games have we seen teams win or lose because of special teams? You can't just ignore it. As it stands right now, the Jets' punt returner is probably Braxton Berrios. Not bad, but definitely not great. In his prime, Tavon Austin was a lot better than Berrios. Can you move Berrios to kick returner? Sure. I don't mind that. As it stands right now, the Jets' kick returner is probably Ty Johnson. There's a chance that Johnson doesn't make the team. And the Jets are going to have a kicking competition, which I don't mind. That's a good thing. The incumbent is Sam Ficken. I like Ficken. He's a clutch kicker, but he doesn't have the strongest leg in the world. The Jets did sign Chris Nagar as an undrafted free agent. Yes, that is how he pronounces his last name. For whatever it's worth, last year he kicked for SMU, and the year before that he kicked for Texas. So yeah, let's have a preseason battle. I don't mind that. Robert Saleh did keep Brant Boyer as his special teams coordinator. He's been with the Jets since 2016. He was around for Bowles, he was around for Gase, and he's going to be around for Saleh. That is interesting. But let me tell you, Boyer's going to have his work cut out for him. Saleh wouldn't hesitate to move on from Boyer if he had to. Make Leon Washington the special teams coordinator. He's actually an assistant special teams coach for the Jets. That would be great to see Washington as special teams coordinator. Was a great special teamer for the Jets. I'll close this show out by eulogizing Jerry Burns, who died yesterday at the age of 94. Jerry Burns is probably the third best coach in Vikings history. First is Bud Grant. That's indisputable. He was the head coach for the Purple People Eaters. Second, I'd probably go with Dennis Green. If you wanted to put Burns ahead of Green, I'd understand it. But I think my vote would go to Green. But again, it is close. Jerry Burns had a really good career with the Minnesota Vikings. After spending 7 years as an assistant coach at the University of Iowa, Burns became their head coach. He took over for the legendary Forrest Evashevsky. Now, unfortunately for Burns, he did not do a good job at Iowa. Never finished with more than 5 wins. His last season with the Hawkeyes, they went 1-9. They were absolutely dreadful. Luckily for Burns, Vince Lombardi hired him to be his defensive backs coach. He served in that position in 1966 and 1967. So Burns did get 2 Super Bowl rings. Then in 68, the Vikings came calling. They did something rather unusual. Burns had spent his whole career coaching defense up until that point. Bud Grant named him his offensive coordinator. Burns did it and spent the next 17 seasons in that role. With the exception of Grant's first year in 1967, Burns was Grant's only offensive coordinator. Even in 1984, when Grant first stepped away and the Vikings made the terrible decision to hire Les Steckel as their head coach, Burns stayed as offensive coordinator. Now, it's important to bring up Steckel. Steckel was dreadful. Went 3-13. Grant came back for 1 more year. In 85, he led the Vikings to a 7-9 record and said, "That was it, I'm done permanently." This time, the Vikings got it right. They hired the guy who they should have hired instead of Steckel in the first place. So Jerry Burns did take over as Vikings head coach. He just did it 2 years after he should have. Under Burns, the Vikings were a really, really good team. In 1987, they were a wild card team. They upset the Saints and the 49ers in the playoffs. But they ended up losing to the Redskins in the NFC title game. That was the Doug Williams Super Bowl year. The year after that, the Vikings went 11-5. They were a wild card team again. They beat the Rams, but the Niners got their revenge in the divisional round by slaughtering the Vikings 34-9. The Niners would go on to win the Super Bowl that year. That was Bill Walsh's last season as a head coach. The year after that, the Vikings won the NFC Central, but the Niners weren't done slaughtering them. In the divisional round, the Niners beat them 41-13. For whatever it's worth, that was George Seifert's first playoff game as a head coach. That year, the Niners would go on to win the Super Bowl. What's important to note there is that the 3 years that Burns made the playoffs as a head coach, the Vikings lost to the eventual Super Bowl winner. That does lessen the sting of losing a little bit. Now, midway through the 89 season, the Vikings made a blockbuster trade. The Vikings traded 4 players and 8 draft picks to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for Herschel Walker. Yes, Jerry Burns was the head coach of the Vikings during the Walker trade. As we all know, that trade gifted the Cowboys a dynasty. The Vikings never won a playoff game with Walker. And look, it is important to bring this up. Herschel Walker was misused by the Vikings. There's no question about that. Walker wasn't a power running back. He was never a power running back. He got by with speed. He liked to get around the edge. You'd watch him go, and you'd say, "Oh my God, he broke that open. He's got to be the fastest guy in the NFL." With the Vikings, Walker was used as basically a power running back. Burns and Bob Schnelker, Burns' offensive coordinator, do deserve some criticism for that. Burns finished his career with a 55-46 record as an NFL head coach. Some people have said that he should go into the Hall of Fame primarily because he was the defensive backs coach for the Packers when they won the first 2 Super Bowls. Then he moved over to offensive coordinator and the Vikings made 4 Super Bowls. Look, there's no question that Burns did some great things as an assistant coach. And he was a good head coach. Make no mistake about that. Like I said, he's the 3rd best head coach in Vikings history. But no, he's not a Hall of Famer. But regardless, he had a career that anyone would be proud of. May he rest in peace. Tomorrow, you're going to get an interview. Haven't told you about it until now because it just got finalized. I'm going to be talking to Bill Dean. He wrote a book about 40 guys who he thinks would have been Hall of Famers if fate didn't intervene. Now, we're not going to go through all 40 guys. What I did was I narrowed it down to the 21 most interesting guys. We'll do short synopses on them. It's going to be very similar to the Steven Greenez interview. Before that, though, I'm going to preview the 8 first-round series in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Everything's going to be official by tomorrow. The schedules have been released. It's going to be a lot of fun talking about the best playoffs in sports. Until then, I am Jacob Valk saying that I think too much on the mound sometimes, and I get brain cramps.